Hey, what's up, guys? Tougie here. A very pissed off Tougie24 here. Back again. This is the second time I'm having to record this. I was going to, record some other stuff tonight, but no, now it's just this because tech issues. So, if anybody ever thinks that it's all just fun and happy fun times and roses and everything's great when you make videos, no, because sometimes 50 plus minutes of work disappears and you gotta do it all over again. But regardless, we're here, it's time, and at the very least I finally get to direct people to a video when they ask my opinion on how's this team gonna do. This is the place for you to know my opinion. So what we are going to do today, I am going to go division by division. We're going to do a quick little recap, my thoughts on how I think everything's going to pan out in the NHL this season. So every division, a full playoff bracket, the whole shebang. I am not predicting any individual player awards because who the hell knows? And again, as it is, predictions meant for fun. Feel free to look back at my predictions over the past 3 years. I have one hell of a track record, let me tell you. So, I'll say this. With me being frustrated, can you tell? With me being frustrated at having to do this over again, thanks OBS, you're the best. With me having to do this again, if you catch me just not giving a damn about making jump cuts and just blatantly looking at the Word document that has all my info on it so that I don't have to make as many jump cuts and can get this done a little bit sooner and make up for some lost time, so be it. But I'm doing what I have to do. Let's not waste any more time. Damn it, let's get right down to business again. Kill me that I'm having... I can't believe I'm having to do this again. Anyway, let's get down to business. Let's start in the Atlantic. We're gonna go the Atlantic, the Metro, the Central, the Pacific, alphabetical order. Are you ready? Starting off with the best team in the world, the Boston Bruins. The Boston Bruins. They still have the best line in hockey, one of the best, with Bergeron, Marchand, and Pasternak. That is not debatable. Looking at the rest of the team, though, you start to get some more questions. You look at Donato, Heinen, DeBrusk. What kind of seasons are they going to have? You look at someone like an Anders Bjork, who's making the lineup. Can he stay healthy this year? The bottom six has some questions. Sean Corrali, Wagner, Nordstrom, Chari as well. Sorry, Nola, kind of forgot your name there for a second. Where are they going to carve out these spots? Is Corrali the 3C? Looking at the defensive side of things, I don't know what this was, but it's this. Torrey Krug's hurt. He's going to be out for a couple of weeks to start the season, but I'm still okay with the Bruins' depth. Chara, John Moore, Kevin Miller, Matt Grzelcyk, Charlie McAvoy, Brandon Carlo, and now Steven Kampfer as the 7th D, technically the 8 if they're 100% healthy, after they sent Adam McQuaid to New York. So I'm still all right with the Bruins defense core to start the year. It's a couple of question marks, though. Of course, John Moore is going to live up to this new contract. Charlie McAvoy, what kind of season is he going to have? And then you look at someone like Carlo, who's been battling injuries, missed pretty much all of last year. What is he going to look like? Is he still going to at least have somewhat close to the high ceiling that everyone thought he might? And then you get to the goaltending, Raskin, Halak. What version of Tuukka Rask are we going to get this year? And Yaroslav Halak as well. A low-end starter could very well be a high-end backup. If he can play 20 to 30 games this year, I think the Bruins will be in good shape. And that is a key for a lot of teams this year, is avoiding their goaltenders burning out. I'll be talking about it a lot. But when it comes down to the Bruins, spoiler alert here, it's a battle between them and Toronto for second and third. You can put whoever the hell you want there. I personally have the Bruins in second because of a couple extra question marks about Toronto. You can call it bias if you want, but I have the Bruins finishing in second in the Atlantic. Next up, we have the Buffalo Sabres with some new-look players, of course. Jeff Skinner, Berglund, Saboka, Connor Sheary, Tage Thompson. Things are looking pretty good there. We're going to get the first full season of Casey Middlestad's career. Definitely a top 3 Calder candidate, I'd say, for the start of the year. The defense is still questionable, though. Hudwick, Beaulieu, Scandella, Bogosian, especially with his health concerns. I'm not really sure about that. And then goaltending-wise, sometimes high-end backups turn into solid starters. Sometimes they don't. Carter Hutton, what side of the spectrum are you going to fall on? We will see. Allmark as the backup. It's a little bit tough. For the Sabres, I'm expecting improvement, but they're still not going to be near the playoffs. I have them finishing in 6th. Moving on to the Detroit Red Wings, and when talking about the offense, this is going to be a common theme for a lot of teams, the Red Wings included. Youth is definitely a prominent feature within this squad. Larkin, Mantha, of course Larkin now with that new big contract, Bertuzzi, Michael Rasmussen as well, and defensively they're starting to transition to a new era. Cholowski, Sulak, Hronek, and Hicketts. The goaltending with Howard and Bernier, but things are looking better for Detroit. I still don't think it's going to be that great of a season for them, certainly not near playoff contention, but you can see them starting to repair things. They're going to finish in 7th in the Atlantic this year. Moving on to the Florida Panthers. After they nearly made the playoffs last year, they went out, didn't make too many changes, but did they really have to? They have a strong squad to begin with. You talk about certain players just getting better by getting more experience, whether it be members of that underrated D-core, guys like Matheson, offensively, guys like Mammon, Lamico, Malgin, Borgstrom will be on this team more than likely. Maybe the first two start down in Springfield. The addition, of course, of Mike Hoffman, and not having to pay a big price to get him. Reimer and Luongo still a solid tandem. Things are looking good for Florida this year. Again, they barely missed out on the playoffs last year. This year, I have them making it. They're going to finish 4th in the Atlantic and make the playoffs via the wild card. This will be an interesting one but the Montreal Canadiens, of course, quite a few changes. Domi, Tatar, Joel Armia, who I do really like. Pekka as well. We'll see if he ends up being a solid enough 4th line option. They have the youth like Kotkaniemi, Sherbak, Lehkonen, Charlie Hudon. They're all going to be key to success. So is the coaching and how everyone squares up, who plays center, who doesn't. The problems, though, begin on defense, where with newly minted captain Shea Weber out injured, if you take away Mete and Noah Juleson, who granted are there, but what I'm saying is look at that defense core with those 3 gone. Petrie, Alsner, Ben, Riley, Xavier Ouellet. Not quite. Even with those other 3, even with Weber, Mete, and Juleson there, to have it be Petrie, Alsner, Ben, not the greatest. And then you factor in Carey Price. Now, for these predictions, I'm not assuming that someone's going to get hurt, so we are going to assume that Carey Price is at 100%. What level of Carey Price do we get is the question. Does he still have the ability to single-handedly carry this team into the postseason? Time will tell, but as far as my prediction is concerned, due to just too many question marks, I have the Habs finishing in 5th in the division and, of course, not making the playoffs. The Ottawa Senators are up next, and what is there left to say? I wish I had my Brian 5 or 6 shirt. It's still in the mail. Yikes. I don't need to talk about what's happened with the Sens and what is still to happen, whether or not Stone and Duchesne get dealt. On the bright side, your goaltending with Craig Anderson's still okay. Brady Tkachuk has apparently made the team. Colin White, Alex Fermenton are looking okay. Defensively, I mean, you have Thomas Chabot, Hot Sam Bacho, so that's looking good. Needless to say, Ottawa finishing in the basement, 8th place. In the basement. Mike Tyson's favorite room of the house, the basement. They are finishing in the bottom of the division, in the basement, 8th place. The Tampa Bay Lightning are up next, and what do you want me to say? I already said 2nd place. 2nd, 3rd was a battle between Boston and Toronto. The Lightning are finishing in 1st place. Spoiler alert. Sure, the health of the superstars is important. Repeat performances from guys like Gord and Braden Point. Corey Conacher made the team. Maybe they'll fleece someone else into taking him this time out. Defensively, I mean, sure, Cuckoo and Girardi being the 3rd pairing more than likely, but you have Hedman and McDonough on a new deal, Strawman and Sergachev, Vasilevsky as a Vezina candidate at the, yeah. They're great. Stuttering aside, they're great. I didn't stutter the first time I made this, though, so I just wanted you to know that. Tampa's winning the division. And that brings me to the final team, and again, perhaps a controversial take, having them in 3rd place in the division, but we have the Toronto Maple Leafs. Of course, they added John Tavares. We know, Leafs fans, we know. The William Nylander situation, though, still ongoing. They are going to need players like Par Lindholm, like Kasperi Kapanen and Andreas Johnsson to really step up, and I expect them to. Nikita Zaitsev, what kind of a season is he going to have? Defensively, Ozhiganov, Justin Hall, and Marty Marincin. How's that going to play out, especially too with the coaching style of Babcock, knowing how stubborn he is and what types of players that he likes. The continued development of Travis Dermott on the back end as well is so important. And the backup goaltending situation, which, spoiler alert here, I'm recording this on October 1st. Now, technically October 2nd, though. Thanks again, OBS, you fucking lovely program. Yeah. As it stands right now, rosters are still not 100% set in stone. A lot of teams, for example, like Florida still has to cut 6 players, and the Anaheim Ducks, who we'll talk about later, still have to call up some players and put some guys on IR. So I'm having to kind of make some assumptions here. But what was confirmed on October 1st is that Garrett Sparks will be the backup. They sent down Curtis McElhinney. And you look last year with Anderson and McElhinney, where Anderson simply played too much and burned out by the time the playoffs were around, even though Curtis McElhinney was performing at the best level he has throughout his entire career. So you look at Garrett Sparks, huge question marks surrounding him. Can he play 20 to 30 games and make sure that Anderson's good to go for that inevitable playoff run? I'm not entirely sure. We'll see how Mike Babcock handles it. We'll see how Garrett Sparks plays. Again, I personally have the Bruins in second over Toronto. If you want to swap home ice advantage between the two, be my guest. But let's be honest, these two teams will be seeing each other in April. It's pretty much confirmed. Moving over to the Metro, we start off with Carolina. Of course, we're going alphabetically. And the Hurricanes, another team with a lot of emphasis on youth. You look at Svechnikov, Nakash, Fagile, Walmark, and Zykov. It's pretty ridiculous. They still have a top-notch defense core. Of course, now the addition of Dougie Hamilton, but they still have Slavin. Justin Falk is somehow still there. Calvin DeHaan is a free agent signing. Pesci, TVR, Hayden Fleury. It's a really good defense core. But then you get to the goaltending. Like I mentioned with Carter Hutton. Sometimes backup goaltenders turn into solid starters. Other times they have seasons like Scott Darling just did. What are they going to see from Darling? What are they going to see from Mrazek? It's such a big question mark. And then, of course, with unproven youth as well, that I can't help but think Carolina's taking a little bit of a step back. The past year or two, they've been, oh yeah, they're going to make the wild card. I just don't see it. Too many question marks. I could see it, but I'm not going to predict it. I have them finishing in 7th. In the division, just due to the improvements of some other teams. The Columbus Blue Jackets are up next. John Tortorella with a newly minted deal. They do have the cloud looming overhead of Artemi Panarin and whether or not he's staying or going, but they have added to the team in a solid way. Riley Nash being brought in, and again, the unreal deal for Anthony Duclair. The fact that he was brought in for that cheap, every other team still needs to be jealous, I'd say. I'm intrigued to see what Pierre-Luc Dubois does in his sophomore year. And then you look at the defensive depth, and that's where it's going to be interesting to start the year, as Seth Jones and Ryan Murray are out. That depth is being tested out of the gates, and I can't help but wonder, too. I'm assuming he's going to be a Vezina candidate, but we have seen Sergei Bobrovsky start off some seasons on some pretty weak notes, mainly the season that got Todd Richards fired. I'm expecting him to do well, but you never know. That said, Columbus, in my opinion, still a playoff team. How would they not be? Bobrovsky being terrible, I guess. 3rd place in the Metro. The New Jersey Devils are next, one of the surprise teams from last season. Will we see a repeat performance from Taylor Hall? Will the younger guys, the Pavel Zakas, Jesper Bratt, Coleman, and Woods, will they be as pivotal to their success as they need them to be? Defensively, it's not as strong as a core as you see for other teams in the league and even in the division, but it's not terrible. The big question I'd say here is goaltending-wise, just the Schneider-Kincaid situation. It's a great tandem, but if one's not playing at the high level, it's just kind of a weird situation for New Jersey. Not much has changed, so I could still see them making the playoffs, but I look at what other teams have done in the division, and I got to admit, and in the Atlantic as well for the other wildcard spot, I just don't see New Jersey making it. I have them finishing in 5th and not being a wildcard team this year, or a playoff team for that matter. The New York Islanders are next, continuing the trend of at least one really depressing team, and I'll make this quick. No John Tavares. Can Matt Barzal lead the way? Time will tell. You look at the rest of the team that Lou Lamoriello has put together. Granted, Andrew Ladd was already there, but Leo Komarov, Filppula, Martin, Johnston, Kuhnhackl. I don't know. I'm intrigued to see what Jan Kovar can do offensively, and defensively it's not all bad. Pulock, Pellick, and Mayfield as they continue to develop. Maybe Robin Lehner actually, finds his game and turns into a really strong goaltender, but eighth place in the Metro. It's not going to happen this year, at the very least, but the future's not completely bleak. Up next, we have the New York Rangers, who have just completed perhaps the quickest rebuild. In fairness, they haven't completed it, but they have turned things around quite quickly. I'm intrigued to see what some of the youth can do. Buchnevich, even though he's been around for a while, Cheadle, Howden, Lettieri. The defense is still strong, not great, but strong. Of course, defensive depth options like McQuaid and Clayson being brought in. The goaltending is still strong. It's not as bleak of a situation as it was or is for, say, other teams in the league. But, despite not being in a bad spot, they're not a playoff team yet, but things are looking good for Rangers fans, and they should be optimistic. I have them finishing 6th in the Metro this season. The Philadelphia Flyers are next. Another team where you can't really say too much has changed outside of JVR, of course, rejoining the team. I'm intrigued to see what some of their younger options can do. The Lindbloms, Konechny's, and Taylor Lears of the world. Defensively, of course, it's still a very young core. Ghost, Provorov, Haig, Sanheim. The big question, though, of course, is goaltending, not only the performance, but the health of their goaltenders. It still seems like they're just waiting for Carter Hart to develop. Whether or not that happens soon enough, who's to say. That said, still a strong team in Philly. I'm going to bank, at least as far as this prediction goes, I'm going to bank on their goaltending staying healthy because, again, I can't really predict injuries. I'm going to say Philly finishes in 4th in the Metro and makes it as a wildcard team. And now we get to the fun part, the main decision that everyone has to make. Who finishes first? Who finishes second? We'll talk about Pittsburgh first. The offense is what it is. The defense is still looking good. You add Jack Johnson as he looks to revitalize his career. Juuso Ricola makes the team out of camp. There is still some concerns, some doubters of Matt Murray. I'd have confidence in him personally, but I can understand why some people have doubted him. And then you have the Washington Capitals, the defending Stanley Cup champions, where I'll say this before I get to the main point here. Depending on how certain prospects do, the Stevensons, the Walkers, the Varanas, defensively as well, they're going to have to rely on some guys like Christian Djoos, Siegenthaler, and Madison Bowie. Phoenix Copley as a backup is concerning. We'll see how he does. The main thing that comes to mind, though, when you talk about the Washington Capitals, shockingly, isn't Ovechkin, Backstrom, Kuznetsov. It's the black cloud looming over the franchise at the moment. In a similar way, I know how it feels as a Bruins fan. Because, you can bring up the great players in the Bruins, but when you think of the Bruins, one guy comes to mind first, that being Brad Marchand, for the most part. And same for the Washington Capitals now at this point with Tom Wilson, as it's looking like he's going to be suspended for actions in the preseason. I'll be intrigued to see how his season goes. He is going to be arguably the main storyline for that franchise, unless Holtby struggles like he did last year. It's just a weird situation. That said, getting to the standings, I have Pittsburgh finishing in first, Washington in second. Just have a little bit more confidence in Pittsburgh because at the very least, they don't have someone who could be suspended at a moment's notice. Moving over to the Western Conference, starting off in the Central Division, let's talk about the Chicago Blackhawks. Or can we? Because what the hell even are they? You look at the roster, guys like Dominic Cahoon, Luke Johnson, and Henry Jokiharju made the roster, which is nice, but you still have so many question marks. On defense, of course, Seabrook and Murphy. You brought in Manning and Davidson for depth options, which is solid. It shores that up. And then you have the big question of Corey Crawford. 1 week, he's done. The next week, no, he's good to play. He just needs to get in shape. Who the hell knows what's going on there? If Corey Crawford isn't good to play, it's Cam Ward and Anton Forsberg. That speaks for itself. Just because there are so many questions surrounding Chicago right now, and they haven't really made significant improvements, I gotta say, they finished where they did last year. They're gonna finish in the bottom, 7th in the Central. The Colorado Avalanche are next, perhaps the biggest surprise team of last season, with the exception, of course, of Vegas, but that's on a whole different level. You want to talk about surprises from last year, Colorado and New Jersey, of course. The Avalanche haven't done much. You bring in veterans like Matt Calvert and Ian Cole. It's still another team that's relying on a lot of youth. Sam Girard on defense, offensively, Tony Nato, perhaps, Kerfoot, Comfort, Tyson Jost. The big thing for me is the goaltending. Of course, what are we going to see out of Semyon Varlamov? Grubauer is there, ready to take that starting job, perhaps. I'm intrigued to see how that plays out. But without any major changes, sure, the development and further development of younger players is nice, but without any major changes and looking at what some other teams in the division did, I can't help but think they're going to take a step back. I have them finishing 6th in the Central and missing out on the playoffs. Speaking of teams that have improved, let's talk about the Dallas Stars, who should have made the playoffs last year had they not completely just How do you even describe that collapse? I mean, you can't just say, like, oh, they collapsed last year. Like, no, this was something special for them to not make the playoffs. But on the bright side, things are looking good. They have re-signed Tyler Seguin. You don't have that cloud looming over the team. Valeri Nichushkin's back from the KHL. I really like their bottom six. Goal scoring wise, we'll see. But guys like Shore, Jamal Smith, and Brett Ritchie. Defensively, it's looking a little bit better with the youth. Guys like Honka and Heiskanen. I'll be intrigued to see what the Toronto duo, Roman Polak and Connor Carrick, what they can do. And what kind of game will we see from Ben Bishop this year? What level will he be on? Regardless, looking at the roster, can't help but think Dallas will do what they should have done last year. They are going to make the playoffs, finishing 4th in the Central and making it as a wildcard team. We then talk about the Minnesota Wild, who haven't done anything, really. They're going to be relying on youth, guys like Erickson, Greenway, and Luke Kunin. Defensively, the core is still strong. Suter, Dumba, Spurgeon, and Brodin is fine. Younger guys like Sealer and Olofsson. Sealer's 25. What are we considering a younger guy at this point? And the goaltending tandem of Dubnyk and Stalock is still okay. But they didn't do much outside of that. So they didn't get better. They didn't get worse. I don't know what to expect from them. And again, looking at what some of the other teams, the big three coming up next, I don't know if Minnesota is going to have what it takes to finish in 3rd or even in the wild card spot. I have them finishing in 5th in the division and missing out on the playoffs. Up next, a team where there's really nothing to say or to talk about, the Nashville Predators. The core is still the same, because of course it is. The big question is goaltending, but Pekka Rinne is always great in the regular season. What do you want me to say? They're the Preds. They're still great. I have them finishing in 1st in the Central. Yeah. The St. Louis Blues are next, and talking about teams that took a step forward. The addition of Ryan O'Reilly, Tyler Bozak, David Perron's back in St. Louis, and getting Patrick Maroon on a nothing deal. You look at the continued development of defenders like Schmaltz, Vince Dunn, and Joel Edmondson. A couple of questions about Jake Allen as a starter, but if Allen's on his game, he and Chad Johnson, that's a very strong tandem. The Blues have done what they needed to do to get back into contention. I see them back in the postseason this time out. I have them finishing 3rd in the division. And last but not least, the Winnipeg Jets, where again, there's not a whole hell of a lot to say outside of the fact that sure, players are going to continue to develop, but it's more of the same now with higher expectations. I have them finishing in 2nd in the Central. And last but not least, let's talk about the Pacific Division, starting off with Anaheim. Anaheim's that team every year where you're like, this is the year that they're going to do it. Except for this year, because they're not. They're going to take a step back. No Corey Perry. No Ryan Kessler, who still isn't on IR. They don't have Nick Ritchie signed. I mean, sure, you get like Patrick Eaves back, who might be a 30-plus point guy. You still have a decent defense with Fowler, Lindholm, Manson, and Montour. But that third pairing between Schuster, Shen, and Corbinian Holzer, I mean, granted, you do have guys like Pettersson and Larson down in the AHL. The big thing here is John Gibson. Can he stay healthy, and can he live up to that big-time contract that's going to kick in next year? The bright side, Ryan Miller's still arguably probably the best backup in the league. Like, he's still good enough to be a starter. I'm intrigued, though, because as it stands right now, they're at 19 of 23 contracts on Cap Friendly. And again, that's before Kessler goes to IR. So who the hell is going to get the call-up between Troy Terry, Kevin Waugh perhaps, Max Jones, Sam Steele, Mitch Holtz, Blandisi, Cali Casilla, Sam Carrick, Pontus Aberg, who they just claimed on waivers. I don't know who the hell's on their opening night roster. So I just can't help but think, I mean, all the pressure on guys like Getzlaff, Raquel, Silverberg, and Henrique to deliver. I just don't see it happening this year for Anaheim. Could very well be wrong, but I'm predicting a step back. They're going to finish in 7th. The Arizona Coyotes are next, and the big question is, how are they going to start off this season? Last year, everyone expected them to be good, and they had a nearly historically bad start to the season. Of course, they picked it up towards the end of last year. Will they be able to play to that level this time out? They'll be looking for a bounce back from someone like Derek Stepan. The addition, of course, of Galchenyuk and Hina Stroza, Clayton Keller in his sophomore year. What are we going to see from Christian Dvorak before his big contract kicks in? Lawson Krause and Dylan Strome have made the roster. Barrett Hayton apparently might make the roster. That's not confirmed yet. Defensively, OEL named captain. I still like their decor. You have Connaughton and Jordan Esterle battling for that 6th spot, so it's not the worst battle there. And goaltending-wise, Ranta and Kemper's still strong. Just depends on whether or not Ranta can stay healthy, as again, he tries to go from the backup role to being a legitimate starter. I think Arizona will get off to a better start, and as a result, will be a better team this year. I have them finishing in 6th in the division. Speaking of teams who underperformed last year, let's talk about the Calgary Flames. Now, they do have some new additions, of course. James Neal, Elias Lindholm, Derek Ryan and Austin Czarnik. Dylan Dubé made it out of camp. The defense is looking strong. Hannafin, of course, after the trade. Giordano, Brody, Hamonic, Stone, and Juuso Valimaki, who also made it out of camp, resulting in Brett Kulak being traded. The big thing here, Mike Smith. Can he stay healthy? Can he lead the team to the playoffs? And again, because I'm not predicting injuries, I'm going to say yes. Calgary finishes in 4th and makes it as a wildcard team, which will make this prediction perhaps a tad bit controversial. Let's talk about Edmonton. Champions-elect last year. They were the cup favorite, and then they crashed and burned. Sure, they still have Connor McDavid, and that's nice, but your season is dependent on fringe players like Strome, Reeder, and Ratty, youth like Yamamoto and Puljujarvi, bounce-back years for someone like Lucic, and coaching as well to make sure everyone's in the best spot possible. The defense isn't terrible despite the Sekera injury, but you are relying on guys like Bouchard and Bear to step up as rookies. And then you have Cam Talbot, who you ran into the ground, and you didn't have a backup good enough last year to carry the slack, and he was still gassed. And now you're relying on Mikko Koskinen, who went from being the 43rd ranked goaltender 3 years ago to the 40th ranked goaltender 2 years ago, and then the 5th ranked goaltender last year in the KHL, so he must be great now and fixed at 30 years old. Good luck with that. You might want to hope it works out. Unfortunately, I'm not so sure. And I hate to tell you, Oilers fans, I don't think you're making the playoffs this year. I'd be all right with being wrong. Connor McDavid in the playoffs would be great, but I have Edmonton finishing in 5th. It's time for perhaps another hot take. Let's talk about the Los Angeles Kings. Of course, the addition of Ilya Kovalchuk. Bringing in youth, though, to counteract that, like Velarde and Anderson Dolan. Defensively, they shore up the Drew Doughty deal, and the D-core is still looking strong. You do have some concerns about goaltending. Can Jonathan Quick stay healthy? But again, not predicting injuries. Jack Campbell, can he slowly start to bring it together and start to live up to some of that potential he had as a former first-round pick? The Kings are going all in with this current core, and I think at least for this season it's going to pay off. I have the Kings finishing in 2nd. The San Jose Sharks are next, and there's not much else to say. The Erik Karlsson deal, sure, questions over whether or not he's going to sign an extension. You have locked up guys like Evander Kane and Logan Couture, and you still have one of the best goalie tandems in the league with Martin Jones and Aaron Dell. It's a first-place finish for the San Jose Sharks. And yes, it's mainly because I'm a Joe Thornton fan. The Vancouver Canucks are next, and unfortunately, it's going to be more of the same, isn't it? The defense is relatively unchanged at the moment. The goaltending, forward-wise, you got Roussel and Beagle. I haven't seen any confirmation on a lot of the big-time prospects making the team. For that reason, dead last, 8th place. In a way, I hope you do get Jack Hughes, because it would be pretty fun to see the Hughes, 2 out of 3 Hughes brothers in Vancouver. But it's going to be a rough year. And last but certainly not least, last year's runner-up, the Vegas Golden Knights. And that is a big factor where nobody is underestimating this team anymore. You did well to recoup some of your losses, guys like Neil and Perron leaving. You did bring in Stastny and Pacioretty, who have experience playing together. Pacioretty could be back to a 30-goal scorer. Defensively, still not the greatest, but still okay. And then goaltending-wise, what will the health situation be? I still think, though, Vegas is strong enough. They're making the playoffs. I have them finishing 3rd in the Pacific. So that brings me to the postseason prediction, the full postseason prediction. Let's talk about it. In the East, we have Tampa and Florida, Boston and Toronto, Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, and Washington against Columbus. As far as the winners go, let's fill out the entire East bracket. I have the Lightning beating the Panthers, the Bruins beating the Leafs, call me biased, the Penguins beating the Flyers, and the Caps beating the Blue Jackets, which means the semifinal looks exactly the same. The entire bracket looks exactly the same, with the exception of Florida losing to Tampa rather than New Jersey. And I got to tell you, that continues as the Eastern Conference Final will be Tampa against Washington. Only this time, I have Tampa going the distance. The Lightning are going to make the Stanley Cup Final this time out. Over in the West, we have Nashville against Dallas, Winnipeg against St. Louis, San Jose against Calgary, and Los Angeles against Vegas. We have Nashville going over Dallas, Winnipeg over St. Louis, San Jose beats Calgary, and the LA Kings upset the Vegas Golden Knights, which brings us to the semifinal, where we have Winnipeg beating Nashville again, sorry Preds fans, and the San Jose Sharks going over the Los Angeles Kings, which brings us to a Winnipeg-San Jose final. I like both teams. I love me some Joe Thornton, but I see the Stanley Cup final being Winnipeg against Tampa Bay, with the Tampa Bay Lightning taking it. Is it the easy prediction to make? Sure, but it's about thinking who's the best team on paper in pretty much every way. It's hard to argue that that isn't Tampa. So guys, that'll do it for this one. I thank you for watching. Again, it might not have ended up being my best video, but hey, I did what I could, being as frustrated as I am at the moment for having to redo this in the first place. I thank you for watching, though. Let me know down in the comments below, as I'm sure you already have, what your thoughts are, not only just for the regular season standings, but the full playoff prediction as well. Who do you have winning these divisions? Who is your early cup favorite? If you have any other questions regarding my predictions, let me know. I'll get back to you and answer whatever I can. For now, I thank you for watching. You know the deal. Support the video, support the channel, the likes, the comments, the subscribing. Check out the description. There's a whole bunch of stuff down there. And until next time, have a good one. Yes, I'll be covering the NHL throughout the season. Have a good one. Take it easy. Goodbye. I hate OBS.